Hello and welcome to the What's the Story podcast. I'm Jarlath Kyan.
And I'm Victoria Houston. Each week we'll be focusing on the stories that matter to you. Stories about the people and places that make Tyrone so special.
The What's the Story podcast is brought to you by the Northwest News Group, who also print our much-loved newspapers, the Ulster Herald, Strabane Chronicle and the Tyrone Herald. Enjoy the show.
It was a harrowing night on August 7th, 1994, that changed the lives of the O'Hagan family forever. Kathleen O'Hagan, 7 months pregnant at the time, was brutally shot dead by UVF gunmen. I'm Callum O'Hagan, and in a special Ulster Herald Weird Tyrone podcast to mark the 30 years since Kathleen's death, we focus on the journey of her son, Damian O'Hagan, as he shares his harrowing experiences from that night, the relentless pursuit of answers, and the enduring impact on his life. Joining us are Damian's wife Kathleen and Sinn Féin MLA Declan McAleer, who provide additional insights and support.
There was 5 of us, 5 were all brothers, Thomas and Raymond, Niall and myself, and Patrick was the oldest. We were a tight wee family, working family, happy family.
The O'Hagans were a typical mid-Tyrone family, living a quiet life in their bungalow home in the countryside, just off the main Omagh to Cookstown road. However, Damian's father, Paddy, was a former Republican prisoner, and the family faced ongoing harassment from the security forces.
There always was a presence of them that would have been walking the roads, or they would have been in the field, or the helicopters would have been always about. So it was pretty common to see them about when we would be playing around the farm. It was awful common to see them. Look, could land. I remember one occasion there was a helicopter the size of a house. It landed in the field in front of the house, and I don't know how many military got out of it. Maybe could have been 50 got out of it. It was very scary. That we were young. Look, that was awful to see that there. They would have been in and around the shades and the buyers and stuff. They would even stop and talk to us and try and give us sweets to get. But my father didn't like us talking to them at all.
In 1988, the O'Hagan family endured severe harassment when their home was subjected to an intensive search operation by the RUC and British Army that lasted for several days. Mechanical diggers tore through their property and kangos drilled through floors, ceilings and walls, all while Kathleen and her children were left alone, as Paddy was arrested and later released without charge. Declan McAleer, a family friend and West Tyrone Sinn Féin MLA, vividly recalls the harassment faced by the O'Hagan family.
British Army and the RUC sealed off the O'Hagan family home for 4 days. They wouldn't let anyone in or out through the cordons, and they systematically wrecked the house. They took Kango hammers to the cement floors of the house. They wrecked Paddy's farm. They dug out his silage and they mixed his equipment back in with the silage and pushed it back in again. They just systematically wrecked the house, and they kept Kathleen and the children prisoner in the house whilst Paddy was arrested. They took him away for 5 days and then they got out. But there was a lot of harassment of the family.
In the days leading up to Kathleen O'Hagan's murder, Damian marked his 7th birthday. One of his final memories of his mother is when the family celebrated the occasion.
It's my birthday on the 4th of August. I remember it pretty well because I got stung by a bee. My mother had a picnic for us in the garden, and there was a few other cousins and family members over. That's as much as I mind.
On the night of August 7th, 1994, Damian and his brothers, Patrick, Raymond and Niall, were in bed while Kathleen O'Hagan was in an adjoining room with her baby Thomas asleep on the cot. Kathleen, 7 months pregnant, likely heard the sound of intruders breaking into their bungalow. Rushing to protect her family, she was confronted by UVF gunmen. The children heard her plead for her life before she was mercilessly shot dead.
I remember we were all lying in bed. me and Raymond used to lie in a double bed, and in the same room Patrick and Niall lay in another double bed, and my mother and father's room was next door, and baby Thomas would have been in a cot beside Mum, and my father wasn't home that night. I don't know what time it was well after dark anyway. Heard an awful smash up in the kitchen, and I heard my mother shouting, "No, don't shoot," like. And we got up to see what was going on, and the bad boys, we used to call them the bad boys. They had gone, they were gone, and my mum was lying beside the bed on her nightie. There was blood on her face and on her chest and stomach. She was pregnant that time as well. She was dead, like, and we just decided to go back to bed and wait till Dad come home. We were in bed. It happened that fast. So they must have, I'm guessing looking back, they must have knew exactly where to go, because they didn't take much time doing what they done, like. They were in and out in minutes, like really fast. Like, by the length of time it took us to get up and see what had happened, they had it done and gone.
Hours later, Paddy O'Hagan returned home from a family celebration, expecting to find his wife and children safe. Instead, he was met with a scene of unimaginable horror. As he approached the bungalow, he noticed the back door forced open and broken glass scattered across the floor. Inside, he discovered Kathleen laying lifeless in her bedroom, surrounded by the bloody aftermath of the attack. The couple's young children were huddled together in shock.
He come home and he seen what happened, and oh God, got us all gathered up and carried us out the back door, because there was glass. All the glass was all around the floor because they had busted in the back door, and got us away till a neighbour's house. Suppose it would have been the next day before we really come to terms with it, when Mum wasn't there. Mum's gone to heaven. Everybody tried to reassure us that she was gone to heaven and it'd be okay.
The brutal killing of a pregnant mother in her own home sent shockwaves through the community. Responsibility for the murder was quickly claimed by the loyalist paramilitary group, the UVF, who in their statement said they intended also to shoot Paddy O'Hagan. In a chilling threat, the UVF added, "We in the UVF will show Republicans how hard it is to listen to a diet of peace while they wage the deadly deed of war. Brace yourself for death, because you're going to see plenty of it." In the early 1990s, loyalist paramilitaries were actively targeting Republicans and their families for assassination. Declan McAleer remembers the pervasive fear that gripped the Republican community in mid-Tyrone after Kathleen's murder, which occurred just weeks before the first provisional IRA ceasefire that helped pave the way towards the Good Friday Agreement.
There was such the palpable sense of fear was just something unbelievable. The fear, the shock. I do remember, in our own case, for example, because my father was a Sinn Féin councillor back in the day. He always knew he was a target, and we would have lived behind steel doors, like many families did. But the the shock and the fear was unbelievable, and I suppose what was almost like a contradiction. A few weeks later, that was the first ceasefire. So it was actually the very first tentative steps towards the peace process. It was a few ceasefires and a good fair agreement, in which there was a lot of setbacks along the way, and that was the first tentative steps. So there was kind of like on one hand, there's this sense of optimism that things could move away, whilst at the same time, this horror that was hanging over our mid-Tyrone and our Tyrone, and just like a cloud, it was on people spoke in whispers. People were afraid to go out. Everybody was suspicious. Strange cars were suspicious. It just was an unbelievable sense of just suspicion and dread, and like a dark cloud hanging over the place.
For Damian O'Hagan, the aftermath of his mother Kathleen's murder was a time of overwhelming grief and confusion. Yet, amidst the darkness, he found solace in the unwavering support of his neighbours and the local community.
Yeah, everybody stepped in and tried to help my father, and us lads tried to help the family. Mum was gone, so the neighbours would come in and done the washing and helped making the dinner and looked after us. If my father wanted to go away, everybody would have come to look after us.
However, Damian's grief deepened in the years following his mother's murder as he faced further heartbreaking losses. In 1997, his youngest brother, Thomas, died after being badly burned in a shed fire beside the house. Then, in 2002, Damian's father passed away at the age of just 49. Tragedy struck again in 2008 when his brother Niall was killed in a motorcycle accident, and yet another devastating blow came in 2020 with the death of his brother Patrick. Each loss rekindling the trauma of that fateful night in 1994.
And Uncle David come home out of America. My father made a pact with him that if he ever was unable to look after him, that David would come home and look after us, and that's what he done. He died then as well. That was hard for us. Then we had another uncle that was about the time David was there, Uncle Martin. The two uncles used to work around the house, and David was the one that stayed with us. He moved in and took over, but Martin was always there, and he died as well then in a car crash. I think I was 18 when he died. So Raymond still wasn't an adult, I was still only a teenager, wasn't properly an adult. We were in the house then on our own, and the firemen had to do that ourselves. We still had a lot of sheep. Tried to keep the farm going. Go to work. And I suppose changing from a teenager to an adult, there was a whole lot going on. That to deal with as well. It was tough,
Sport offered Damian a refuge from the heartache that consumed his life. Through GAA football and success of his local club in Greencastle, Damian discovered a sense of purpose, helping him cope with the immense loss and trauma.
Did a bit of football. Greencastle, pretty successful run back in 07. We went on to win both the league and the championship, and then went on to win the Ulster Championship, and finally ended up winning the All-Ireland, the junior championship in 07. It was a great experience that was a great experience in my life. I was glad of the football that time, get away from it all.
Seeking a fresh start and a way to cope with the painful memories, Damian moved to Australia, as did his surviving brother Raymond. It was there he met his future wife, also named Kathleen. Her unwavering support and understanding played a crucial role in helping Damian navigate the enduring grief and trauma from his past.
We met at a bar in Sydney about 5 years ago now, just after he'd arrived in Australia. Didn't take long, he wore me down with his Irish charm. I think even on our first meeting, he was, an education to a certain extent for me. Even on our first meeting, he told me where he lived and corrected me very quickly to make sure that I knew that he was Irish. And the discussion started then. And I think every interaction we had, he just opened up more and more, talking about what it was like at home and what had brought him to Australia. And then it was only a few months after that he was telling me about his mum and everything that had happened at home. So Damian had just turned 7. Raymond must have been around 3 or 4 years old. So they're the two last remaining boys, and both of them, you start to talk about these things and you get shut down very quickly. They don't want to talk about it. And both of them have gone overseas. And part of that move overseas, I'm sure, is a little bit of escapism, a break, because growing up here, they're always going to be the sons of the pregnant woman who was murdered, right? And that comes with a level of notoriety or story or something that you can never get away from. So how can you ever have an identity of your own that is separate from such a horrific incident? And so from a trauma perspective, I can't even begin to imagine what that would be like, but I don't think it ever goes away.
In the days following Kathleen O'Hagan's death, the family issued a statement calling for an inquiry into the collusion between loyalist murder squads, the RUC and the British Army. They said, "We firmly believe that both the British forces and loyalists must share responsibility for Kathleen's murder. Her death is the tragic outcome of years of relentless, organised harassment of our family. Can anyone really blame us for lacking confidence in any investigation conducted by those who have tormented us for so long?"
Well, I think that they were targeting my father, but anybody that was there was going to get, or anybody that wanted to interfere would have got targeted as well that night. There had been local people involved, because they would have had to know the area, because the getaway car was taken up the road and burnt in a fairly quiet part of the road, up a side road, up a wee back road. The getaway, the road that they exited and left back to where they come from, was not a road strangers would have knew.
Despite the passage of 30 years, the search for truth remains as urgent as ever. The getaway car used in Kathleen's murder was discovered by local residents and burnt out just a mile from the family home, yet it was not detected by an army helicopter. Additionally, crucial evidence such as the suspect's clothing went missing, and several investigative leads were neglected. The police response was slow, with officers taking 2.5 hours to arrive at the scene. Furthermore, revelations from the original 1997 inquest indicated that the weapon used in Kathleen's murder was also linked to other killings. Damian and his family continued to call for a fresh inquest and a thorough and transparent investigation into the circumstances surrounding Kathleen's murder.
Even the admission that the investigation was flawed would be a step in the right direction. Because I think when we look at the investigation, you even think, you hear the stories about the night, police not attending for hours, the burnt out vehicle not being identified by helicopters. You know, so many components, allowing a civilian to clean the house, forensic elements not being taken, the fact that there were army equipment found in the fields. All of these things bring us to a place that the investigation was never undertaken properly.
The families deserve to get the truth. You know, we always be guided by them, and they want to get whatever mechanism is required to get to the truth. So certainly from our perspective, We are saying that in 2014 there was a mechanism agreed at the Stormont House agreement. There was a mechanism which was a two-pronged approach, an investigations branch and an informational retrieval branch. And we believe that those institutions, that proposal, which was agreed by all of the parties here, we believe that should be implemented to give families a sense of closure and justice, and certainly get to the truth. I have to say that even though that was agreed by the parties here, the British government never implemented. They went ahead with this Legacy Act. So we're hoping now that Labour will repeal this and we will get back to what we were at in 2014, because the Legacy Act doesn't have the support of the parties here.
We're in the context of great personal and political agendas at play. So we have to just keep pursuing justice the best we can within the confines of what's put out there at the moment, whether that is through the new commission or whether it is through what the Labor government intend to bring in or intend to replace the legislation with. We've just got to wait and see. But the outcome and the objective is still the same, that remains unchanged.
Damian O'Hagan has returned home to Greencastle for the 30th anniversary of his mother's death, finding solace in the familiar surroundings and the support of his community. Despite the painful memories, the place where he grew up remains a source of comfort, filled with neighbours and friends who have stood by his family through their darkest times.
Absolutely. We were married here nearly 2 years ago. And at the end of the day, when you look at particularly the community around Greencastle and Mountfield, when Damian's mum was murdered and his brothers tragically died in the years after, and then his father and his uncle and all of this, that community stepped in and raised Damian. So the connection is very, very strong in that community. The people of Greencastle are Damian's surrogate family in this instance, and they always will be.
It's very challenging for Damian. The horror he's been through is just absolutely unbelievable, and I really admire his resilience, because whilst it's clearly very hurtful what happened to him, he still is very, very determined to get his mother's story out there, to keep pushing ahead for a campaign to shine the light on the truth of what happened. So despite his hurt, what he experienced, he's ploughing on ahead, and that takes resilience and it takes courage.
Damian and his family marked the anniversary of Kathleen's death with a poignant service in Greencastle. The commemoration was attended by friends, family and community members who gathered to honour Kathleen's memory and to also remember the other deceased members of the O'Hagan family. Addressing the service was MP John Finucane, who himself witnessed his father Pat being shot dead by loyalists.
Families like the O'Hagans continue to be an inspiration, not just to me, but I'm sure to every single one of us in this community this evening. And the battle for truth and justice is for another day. But today and tonight, we stand with the family. We stand so that they know and hear loud and clear that they are not alone. Whether they are in Australia or whether they come back to Ireland, this community, this country, us as a people will stand by them, because a victory for them in truth and justice is a victory for every single one of us, whether we lost somebody or not.
The unresolved questions and lack of accountability have been a source of ongoing anguish for Damian and his family. Kathleen believes that uncovering the full truth about his mother's killing and holding those responsible accountable will bring a sense of closure, allowing Damian to finally heal from the deep wounds inflicted that night 30 years ago.
And I guess that leads us to, I suppose, why that point on justice is so important. Because even in the absence of being able to find peace in himself, at least justice is something. It's not easy though.
Somebody being brought to justice would have been accountable for it, would be the agenda. Hopefully someday we'll get there.
Mama, you'd win everyone a medal of honor was pinned on her there.
Thank you for listening to this podcast, which is brought to you by the Ulster Herald and We Are Tyrone. This episode was written and produced by Nigel McDonough. Interviews, narration and editing by Cal McGuigan. A special thanks to Damian O'Hagan, his wife Kathleen and Declan McAleer MLA. Outro music is a rendition of Medals for Mothers, sung by Ciara Fox at Kathleen O'Hagan's 30th anniversary commemoration service.